Good evening and welcome everyone. We are going to wait another minute or so to see if any of our other district leader colleagues will join. We'll get started in just a moment. Thank you, everyone.
Hey.
Hey, Jackie. Alrighty. So in the interest of time, and because we have a very long agenda, we want to hear from our judicial candidates. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Supreme Court Forum for candidates seeking election or re-election to the New York State Supreme Court for Kings County, Brooklyn. My name is Julio Peña III. My pronouns are he, him, or they. I am a district leader in the 51st Assembly District, serving Sunset Park, Red Hook, parts of Bay Ridge, and Park Slope. And I'm going to ask my district leader colleagues to quickly introduce themselves, starting with my co-leader, Jackie Painter.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. It's super important to get to know our judges and judicial system for borough. And I am also the district leader for 51st, co-leader with Julio. So yeah, I will send it over to our district next to us, 52. Aaron, go for it.
Hey, yes, I'm Aaron O. Young. I'm one of the district leaders in Assembly District 52, which covers from Dumbo pretty much down to Gowanus through Park Slope, Cobble Hill, Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn Heights, downtown Brooklyn area. Yes, just want to thank everyone for attending and making some time for this. And I will pass this over to my co-leader, Lydia.
Hi, everyone. I'm also a district leader in Assembly District 52, along with Aaron. And I'm glad that we could hold this forum to make sure that ordinary voters have more of a say and more insight into how judges are chosen. So thank you for being here, and thank you to all the judicial candidates for joining us. And I guess I'll pass it over to Camacho.
Hi, how are you? My name is Robert Camacho. I am the district leader of the 54th Assembly, which covers Bushwick. Thank you, guys. You're the best.
Felix, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. My name is Felix Ceballos. I'm the district leader in Assembly District 53. That is Bushwick and William Burrs. And I'm excited to hear any candidate and ask question and waiting for the answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Akel?
Hi, everyone. My name is Akel Williams. I'm the male district leader in the 43rd Assembly District. It's a pleasure to be here to hear from you all. I know many of you have spoken to. Some of you have been reaching out, and I have yet to get back to you. But tonight, fortunately, is an opportunity for us to hear from you and to see, try to make the picks that we think is that are best for New York State. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Hey, everybody. Chris McCrite. I'm the district leader for Bay Ridge, Diker Heights, Coney Island, and Brighton Beach. I look forward to hearing from all the judges, and I'm actually really looking forward to hear what some of the non-district leader questions are, because I think judges hear from us a lot. They get the same questions a lot, and I want to hear what the regular voters and county committee members are thinking.
Thank you, Chris. And Tori?
Hi, thank you, Julio. Good evening, everyone. Tori Kelly, I'm the district leader for the 49th Assembly District in Southern Brooklyn. Thank you to everyone for being here, and thank you for Julio for organizing us and the other leaders for being on it. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So I know some other of our colleagues will be joining later on. And just to go over the run of the evening, each judicial candidate will get 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Following the 2 minutes, they will get 8 minutes of Q&A from either district leaders, from folks throwing questions in the chat and the Q&A. And after the 8 minutes, for a total of 10 minutes, we'll move on to the next candidate. As you can see, for some, we are already running a little bit behind schedule, but I'm sure we will catch up. For judges joining, and I'll repeat this throughout the evening, there is a timer in the upper right corner of my screen, so I will be keeping time. And hopefully a soft chime will sound when you're getting close to the end. With that, let us go ahead and get started with our first candidate speaking, the Honorable Keisha Elaine. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
That's like a lean fighting machine.
I love
Yes,
that.
indeed.
Go ahead and start with your introduction.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Keisha Aline, and I am a civil court judge sitting in downtown Brooklyn, which is the People's Court, right on Livingston Street. I was elected in 2021 by the independent-supported grassroots campaign. I'm a Brownsville girl, born and reared in Brownsville. I then went off to college in Smithfield, Rhode Island. So I went from Brownsville, Brooklyn to the smallest area, Smithfield, Rhode Island. I then went to Thurgood Marshall School of Law, where I gained an HBCU, where I got my law degree, came home and went to New York Law School and got a lawyer's master's in taxation. So I'm not your typical lawyer's route, but I have that LLM and I'm a math and science girl. I think while I was at Bryant University, that's where my advocacy skills started. I was one of, in the graduating class of 500, I was 5 African-American students. So we dealt with a lot of microaggressions, gender inequality, and things along those lines. Prior to election, I was a corporate defense litigator for 17 years, practicing in all courts in the boroughs. I am, prior to that, and one of the things I think is most important about me that makes me extremely, my passion work is my youth connection. I am truly passionate about the development of youth and making sure that they receive the opportunities and resources that they need in order to be excellent advocates for the future. So that's a little bit about me. I think my time is up. I can't see the timer anymore. Is it? The
You've
timer
got
is
15
gone?
seconds left.
Okay, I can see it now. Yes. So, yes, I was corporate defense litigator, and I currently sit in Brooklyn. And I'll stop there. Wait for my question.
Thank you so much. Still working out the kinks with the timer.
No worries.
So let's go ahead and
That's what
start
happens when you're the first person up. You get the run of the mill.
Exactly. Let's go ahead and
It's
start
fine.
with some Q&A. I'll open it up to any of my colleagues if they have a question, but I'll also start with a question for me. What do you consider your greatest professional accomplishment?
My greatest professional account. Does it have to be where I was actually employed as a judge, or you just mean period in life?
Career-wise.
Okay. So I will tell you this, I have a lot of accolades. I have a lawyer's master's and a whole lot of things, but I want to say that the one thing that I am most passionate about, it doesn't actually have to do with the law. It actually has to do with my youth development. My greatest, the thing that I value most is my ability to be the greatest mentor that is out there. I have my own youth group of about 30 young people from different areas of Brooklyn and underserved communities. And my job is to give back to them and make sure that they are amazing individuals and the resources and access and things that I didn't have that they have. So that is one of the most proud, and for them to be able to stand out and speak and to do the things that, and to provide them with resources, areas, bringing them into the courthouse, taking them on college tours, helping them to fill out college applications, doing all the things, teaching them about the law, becoming a judge so that they can be inspired to want to be a judge. Things along those lines. Those are the things that for me is most that I'm most proud of. And so I would definitely have to say it's one of the things that I'm most passionate about. So that would be one of the things that I'm most proud of, because I have over 100+ young people who can say that Miss Keisha has truly impacted their lives. And they still call me to today, and I still do the work till this day, even as a full-time judge.
Thank you. And we have a question from the Q&A from Raquel Williams. If you become aware of misconduct or malpractice of a fellow lawyer or judge, how would you handle it?
So we have, as a lawyer, you know, we're the judge. So if someone comes before us and they are, you know, and they're doing something unscrupulous or that they're not doing anything right, it's our job to make sure that that is handled. So that means telling the proper authorities if we need to, or reporting them accordingly if need be. As a judge, we have OCA. So if there's something that is happening that's inappropriate, you know, as a judge, fairness, equality, all of those things, we're the upholders of the truth. So we should be practicing in the right space and doing the things that are right. So if something happens, then, you know, or if there's something that's not proper, then we have to say, you know, we have to report accordingly. That's our job. We're supposed to be the truth bearers. So we have to stand on that.
And then we have a question. Thank you. We have a question from Felix Ceballos.
Yes, my question is, I want to hear your concern when we were talking about child support.
Child support? I'm sorry?
Felix, can you repeat the question?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. And my question is, I want to hear your concern when we talking about child support.
Child support?
Yeah, so I think
Yes.
Felix is asking about
Yes.
child support for cases involving child support that may come before you in the family court.
Not in the family situation.
So, you know, we can't give as judges, we can't give our opinion on any cases per se. Every case that comes before us, we have to handle the facts accordingly, make sure that we are looking at all of the things. And really, when it comes to the family, it is in the best interest of the child. So we're forced to follow the law, and we have to think about, as a judge, you know, it is our job to uphold the law. So whatever is, and make rulings that are in the best interest of the child in those cases. So everything is handled on a case basis until we have, you know, an actual case before you that has those facts. Our job is to make sure that our youth or that our children in the court system are, you know, handled the best way that they, you know, what's in their best interest first. That should be our thought process.
Thank you.
Any other questions from leaders? Okay, I'll go with another question from the Q&A. This one's from Matthew Fairley. As a civil court judge, how long do you take to issue a decision on a fully submitted motion?
So on fully submitted motions, the court has reporting guidelines. My goal, I don't like backlog on my calendar. I don't like things being outstanding or anything along those lines. So my goal, honestly, I write a lot of decisions within the day. I try to get them out as quickly as I possibly can. My court attorney is very vigilant about making sure that we try to get things out as quickly as we possibly can. So we have reporting in the courts that where you have to report if you have cases over 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days in your possession at the time. And we do these quarterly. And I'm grateful to say in the amount of time that I've been here, I've only had one case that I had to report that was 30 days over. And that was only because I had to continue to put the case back on and I had to do a lot of research on it. So routinely, I give myself at most a week and a half to 2 weeks at most. But generally, my cases are, when my cases are marked submitted, I'm turning them down around fairly quickly, unless there's something that's, really research worthy or something along those lines. Extremely in depth.
Thank you. And we have just under 2 minutes. And I'll take another question from Jacob Goldfinger. The Office of Court Administration has considerable influence in both legal interpretation and administration. What can members of the bench do to make court administration more transparent?
So one of the committees that, and I'll try to speak fast, one of the committees I'm a part of is the Equal Justice in the Courts Committee. And I'm the chair of, I'm the Brooklyn Kings chair of the Equal Justice in the Courts Committee. And basically what that committee does is it provides, it's an outward facing committee. Pretty much it's supposed to provide tools and resources to the people. Let them know what is there, what access you have to the court. So we do, workshops or things, we provide them with opportunities so that they can see that we have interpreters, so that they can see that we have resources, a resource room in room 404, that they can see that there are free legal services for them. So I would say what has to happen is that we as judges, where we can, of course, must take spaces and opportunities to be able to provide the public with as much information as we can. Education is key. So, a lot of times communities that, communities that are underserved don't know all of the things or the resources that they may have. That's that equity issue. So our goal is to try to sit down and find ways that we can provide more information to the community. And I do it through the Equal Justice in the Courts Committee if it's directly reflecting what my job is.
And right on time. Thank you so much, Judge Aline.
Yes, Aline.
Appreciate your time, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of the forum, but you don't have to.
Can I just say thank you very much, everyone? I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next
thank you.
judge is the Honorable Deepa Ambekar.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you
Good evening.
hear me?
Yep, can hear you just great. And then you can go ahead and get started with your 2-minute introduction.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Judge Deepa Ambekar. I've been on the bench since 2018. I was appointed to the bench by Mayor de Blasio, and I've been primarily or exclusively serving in the criminal context. So I was first in criminal court, and then I was recently elevated to acting Supreme Court. So I am doing Supreme Court work right now in criminal term. So prior to being a judge, I was a public defender with the Legal Aid Society for a number of years, and I represented individuals facing all sorts of crimes, from low-level offenses all the way to serious violent felonies. After I left the Legal Aid Society, I was a senior legislative counsel with New York City Council under Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito, and I primarily worked on criminal justice legislations. So some of the things that I worked on while I was at the council was I drafted and worked on the first Right to Know Act, the Consent to Search bill, as well as the police ID bill. And also one of the biggest part of my portfolio was the Criminal Justice Reform Act, where we worked on proportional penalties for low-level offenses. So offenses such as littering, urinating in public, noise, disobeying park rules, being in the park after dark, all of those offenses used to be criminal offenses. And so we drafted a civil analog such that police officers wouldn't have to ticket them or arrest people for criminal offenses and had the option of civil offenses. One of the main issues that came out of that is that when people missed their court dates for criminal offenses, they would have warrants issued for their arrest. And by giving this civil analog, police officers had the option of giving civil offenses such that they would have proportional penalties, they would not get warrants for the arrest, and they wouldn't have incarceration. Oh my gosh, that was so much pressure watching that little time, the 2-minute time limit. So I hope I can go into a little bit more detail on some of the work that I had done then and while I've been on the bench.
Of course, thank you. And now we can go into our Q&A. And we do have some questions. And I will start with one. What do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice?
So one of that's a pretty broad question. So I think some of the access to justice issues is, transparencies with the court, knowledge and accessibilities of the court, understanding, I can speak from the criminal justice process, understanding the criminal justice process, some of the know your rights type forums, oftentimes the Legal Aid Society or other agencies do that. So I think education is one of the impediments to access to justice. And I guess more accessibility to the courts and understanding how the process is and how it works on our end.
Thank you. And we have a question from Cynthia Felix, who lives in the 51st Assembly District. How do you view the role of the judiciary in addressing issues of social justice, such as racial and gender equality?
So, the role of judges is to decide the cases that are before us. And some of the things that we can do in our courtroom is to strive to treat everybody fairly and to protect against implicit biases and just any racial prejudice or what have you. And so I strive, at least in my courtroom, to treat everyone fairly and equally, to address everyone with their preferred gender pronouns, or to make people comfortable and respect everyone that comes before me. One of the things I do is I rely heavily on scripts. And so I know that every single person that's coming before me, regardless of their race, gender, national origin, or what their background is getting the same information on every single case. And the first person that I might see, say, for example, if I'm working in night court at 5 p.m., is getting the same exact information as the person that I'm arraigning minutes to 1 in the morning. And so it ensures that I'm staying standard and I'm not treating people disparately. And people are getting different information on similar situated cases.
Thank you. Another question. Can you describe an area where you feel judges would need more training?
I think that, we do have judges training on a regular basis. So every year, all judges have to go to training. I think that one of the parts that we can continue, we do have a lot of training in general on many of the issues. I think we can continue to have training and emphasis on implicit bias, on how to protect against it, or at least to acknowledge our own biases and to treat everyone fairly and properly under the law. And then in addition, we do get regular updates and training on recent developments in the law, which they should continue to do so.
Thank you. We have a question from Lydia Green.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? So I asked you this question before in our meeting earlier, but I'm gonna ask it again in front of everyone else. But can you talk a little bit more about work that you've done, either to reduce the criminalization of poverty, or decreasing mass incarceration or providing resources for low income, poor, and working class people. Since the criminal justice system and the legal system overall have more negative impact on those groups in particular currently.
Sure. So one of the things I did in my past life when I worked with Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito, I did assist her on creating the commission to reduce incarceration with an eye towards shutting down Rikers and opening up more borough-based jails. Now, as a judge, some of the things I like to, or I have been employing is, bail is one of the biggest issues in the criminal justice world. And often individuals cannot afford bail and therefore are stuck at Rikers Island, where somebody who has more resources may be able to bail themselves out on the same sort of case. One of the things that I've been leaning on in terms of resources and people suffering from substance abuse issues or mental health issues that may end up in Rikers in on bail that shouldn't be there, that really should be getting some sort of treatment on some lower level nonviolent felonies. I've been able to construct electronic monitoring, which will ensure that the person comes back to court. That is one of the bail alternatives that has been given to us as an option with with the new legislation. And I've combined that with a treatment program. So in the part that I'm in right now, I have an opportunity to revisit bail. And oftentimes defense attorneys are able to come to me with a package with treatment alternatives to somebody who's in jail. And I'm able to balance their ability to come back to court, which is the purpose of bail, with electronic monitoring in conjunction with maybe a residential treatment bed so that they have some housing or at least a stable place that they are residing. And the sheriff's office is able to coordinate with the program as well as electronic monitoring that allows them to come back to court, but still remain outside of Rikers, getting the treatment that they want. And hopefully the course of their case will move towards a treatment-based resolution rather than an incarceration-based resolution. So I've been trying to use some of those tools more in my bail decisions when it is appropriate.
Thank you. And then we have a question from Felix.
Yes, you mentioned a lot of detail already, but I want to hear a little more about the question what I asked you is why you want to run for Supreme Court?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So I am an appointed judge right now, and I'm an acting Supreme Court judge. So while I'm in Supreme Court right now, I'm in an acting basis. And one of the, I guess, nuances of the law is that if you're an appointed judge, there's a ceiling. So I won't be able to, if I want to go to the appellate term or to move up past the trial level courts, I'm unable to do that as an appointed judge. The only way that you can advance or go forward is to be a Supreme Court judge. Now, I don't know if, I love what I do right now, and I've only been in Supreme Court for about 6 months, and that is my intention at the moment. But there is a ceiling as an appointed judge, and I do want the seat, right? So right now I'm here in an acting capacity. That can change any moment, and I won't get the seat unless I'm actually elected by the people of Brooklyn and New York.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and right on time. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Judge Ambikar, for joining us.
Oh my gosh, that was so quick. Well, thank you very much for your attention. All right, hope you have a good evening.
Thank you, same to you. And next we will move to the Honorable Adam Perlmutter.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Can
We're all
hear you
good,
just great.
excellent. Hello, good evening. My name is Adam Perlmutter. I'm an acting justice in the Supreme Court. I sit in the criminal term. I've been a judge since 2018. I was appointed in that year by Mayor de Blasio. I sat in the criminal court for 6 years, and then I was transferred to the Supreme Court at the beginning of this year. Looking back over my career, my life, my interest in the law really started because as a child. And it started being rooted in the idea of social justice from the very beginning. My father was a lawyer. He practiced law as a federal prosecutor in the Justice Department under Robert Kennedy, and took great pride in the work that the Kennedy administration did on civil rights, and taught me about that as a young kid. And in his office, he had a poster that had the quote from Leviticus that said, "Justice, justice that shall pursue." And he taught me that's what I should be pursuing with my life. And so I went to law school. I became a lawyer. I opened my own firm, and give you an idea of the cases that I handled, the way I incorporated social justice into my life. I sued in federal court and argued the case in the Second Circuit that eliminated qualified immunity for prison guards accused of sex abuse to allow the expansion of civil rights. I did wrongful conviction cases, 4 of them in particular. Now I sit on the bench in Supreme Court, and I work very hard to have alternatives to incarceration for the serious felony cases in front of me. And I think what I'm most proud of since I've gone to Supreme Court is I've had the opportunity to teach judges throughout the state about wrongful convictions with exonerees. And that's been a very, very powerful program. And I look forward to your support going forward. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions as well.
Right on time. Thank you. And let's go ahead and go into our Q&A. We have one question, 2 similar questions, one from Jorge Munoz, another anonymous attendee, regarding cash bail.
Sure.
Do you agree with the recent legislative moves to limit cash bail so that poor people aren't in jail pre-trial while awaiting charges amid the criticism from some that too many repeat offenders, violent offenders, aren't being held in jail by judges, by some conservative Democrats?
So this is a very controversial question, and there is a decision from the Advisory Committee on Judicial Ethics that says that we can't speak on it since it is a matter of public importance. But I have to speak on it in a way that brings, the proper respect to my role as a judge. I've served on the State Justice Task Force since 2012, and we issued a report on bail, where it was recommended that the state transition away from an all-cash bail system. Bail has been very controversial, but I think that as we've seen with the way that it's developed in practice, that bail's actually doing a good job sorting out people who should be not held pre-trial and should be given the opportunity to be at liberty, be with their families, be with their jobs and with their communities. So I don't think it comes as any surprise. I think many of you have heard me speak favorably before of the changes in bail. New York stands alone in the United States as the only state that does not look at dangerousness as a factor for setting cash bail. And we stand in a staunch and I believe pretty proud position where New York has worked hard to not make bail a driver of mass incarceration. And so I think that a lot of the criticism of bail, when you drill down on those cases and you look at what's happened and you think about the confluence of COVID and bail reform coming in at the exact same time, I think that the story of bail and bail reform in New York is really yet to be written.
Thank you. So I have another question. What types of cases within the jurisdiction of the New York State Supreme Court are of most interest to you?
It's interesting. I don't know how many of you, I'm going to date myself, but I know Felix Ceballos and Robert Camacho might know this. There was an old ad called For Life Cereal, and there was a kid named Mikey, a little kid, and they gave Mikey the Life Cereal because he'd eat anything. And so I've gotten to Supreme Court and I've started taking on a bunch of deed theft cases for trial, which are white collar cases. A lot of judges don't enjoy those cases. They're very paper intensive. They're basically paper cases. And so in Supreme Court, it's an area that I've come to be exposed to and really take great interest in presiding over.
Thank you. Another question from Catherine. In what ways do you ensure the rights of low-income people, including domestic violence survivors, in your role as judge?
Well, you know, what I do is I make sure that people have, if they're appearing before me as justice-involved individuals, I do everything in my power to make sure that they have competent counsel representing them. And if counsel is not competent, they'll be hearing about it from me. You know, even to the point of, you know, considering disciplinary action against lawyers that are doing things that they shouldn't be doing in my courtroom. As far as domestic violence survivors, you know, there are resources and programming available, and to the extent that I can assist in directing people to those resources and programs, of course I do that. Another thing I do is I really try to create a safe space for domestic violence victims, especially during trial, to be able to testify without fear, and to reduce the anxiety that they're experiencing in those situations. And then if there's a conviction, post-conviction before sentencing, to make sure that they're given agency and voice. That said, you know, I think it's really important for us to kind of broaden the discussion to really think about the role of restorative justice, not only as it may benefit people who are, you know, justice involved, but victims as well, and perhaps most important victims, because I think that their healing through restorative justice plays a critically and underappreciated role in the work that we can do.
Thank you. And we have a question from Lydia.
Hi, Judge Perlmutter.
Hi, Lydia.
Nice to see you again. So my question is, so you're currently a judge who's been appointed, and can you talk a little bit more about why you're looking to be an elected judge and how you'll be able to serve our borough differently as an elected judge?
Sure. So, listen, the bottom line is, ever since I've taken the bench, I've followed my own heart on every case that that's been in front of me and my mind to make sure I'm doing the right thing. And I think that my record speaks for itself. The thing about becoming an elected Supreme Court justice is as an appointed judge, is that I no longer need to return to the mayor to ask whether I can continue to be a judge. So for me, that would mean next year, I would have to go back to Mayor Adams to ask for a reappointment. Now, I don't think there'll be any problem with that. But at the same time, I think that having that total independence is really something that's quite powerful, and something that I would like to, it's a space that I'd like to occupy with the work that I do.
Thank you. And we have about a minute and a half left. How do you view, I'm going to re-ask a question from previously, how do you view the role of the judiciary in addressing issues of social justice, such as racial and gender equality?
You know, the fact is that the judges have an enormous role to play. They set the tone for a very large part of our government, you know, a third of the government, and really one that the public interacts with probably most of the time, more than other branches, than the legislative or the executive branch. So the things that I do is, you know, I'm obviously very careful in honoring people's pronouns and respecting that. I work very hard on jury selection to root out and to teach about implicit bias. In fact, I do an exercise during jury selection, which breaks out from the model instructions, where I have jurors ideate as to me with a brief description and catch them actually forming stereotypes about me with no information whatsoever about the type of person that I am. And they catch themselves and they realize that they shouldn't be doing that during the trial with any witnesses or with the justice involved person or anybody that's involved in the court proceedings. I also sat on the Kings County Gender Fairness Committee and Gender Equity Committee in criminal court. You know, that was wonderful work, and I hope to continue it in Supreme Court.
Thank you so much, Judge Perlmutter, for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good evening. I have to run to another event, so everybody be well, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Judge Jill Stein. Excuse me, Judge Jill Epstein.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Go ahead and start with your 2-minute introduction.
Okay, very good. I'm Jill Epstein. I've been a judge for 5 years. And I sit in civil court, Kings County. I've been a lawyer for 40 years, though. And I grew up in Brooklyn. I was born in East New York on Alabama Avenue to a mother from Georgia and Livonia and a father from Blake and Amboy. I'm second-generation American, but I am the first woman in my family to go to college and the only one to have a graduate degree. So in the 40 years that I've been a lawyer, I was in private practice for 15 years. I represented Rhino Records, EMI, Arista. I litigated all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, not New York. I did a lot of civil rights work. I got right to sue letters and housing steering cases and did employment discrimination and housing discrimination, which I was very proud to do. I was probably the first lawyer in New York to bring a visitation case for a trans woman in family court, which I was very proud to do. We were very successful, and my client was able to see her son, and we were really thrilled with that. After that, my son got a little older. I have a 26-year-old now, but he started to notice that I was working way too long hours, and I came back to the court system, and I was a law clerk for 15 years. And the last 9, I was a law clerk to the Honorable Johnny Lee Beams, who trained me and worked with me. And we worked on the Long Island College Hospital case together and kept that hospital open for 2 years longer than it would have been. And I was really proud to help with that. I don't want to talk over my time.
Thank you. And moving into the Q&A, which actually might go perfectly with your last statement on law clerk. Can you, what qualities and experiences would you look for in a law clerk, and what will you do to increase diversity in court staff, especially law clerks?
So I never pay much attention to what the people I work with look like. I've been blessed to work with people who are in every flavor, every color, every type. For myself, I was lucky enough to have a junior law clerk who was a young African-American man. My judge was a Black man. So I worked with him for 9 years. My same criteria would hold. I always try to keep different ideas around me. I don't ever want to hear people say the same thing and say yes. So I always want different opinions and different outlooks, and that colors how I hire. So it would probably, my first law clerk now was actually a woman of color. She unfortunately had trouble commuting to work and took another job. But, you know, like I said, I always try to do my part in terms of seeing the world as multicultural and in all its beautiful colors and all its beautiful textures. So that doesn't change when I am elevated, if God willing, I'm elevated from civil court to Supreme.
Thank you.
Plus, I should also tell you that I sit on the Gender Fairness and Equality Committee. I'm the Kings County Chair of that committee. So we work very hard to make sure the judges we work with are attuned to those issues.
Thank you. And we have a question from Felix Ceballos.
Hello.
Hi.
My question is in cases like domestic violence, I want to hear you saying about that.
So when I first got out of law school, I worked in family court, and I worked for a judge who was the co-chair of the Governor's Commission on Domestic Violence. And I actually got to go with her to Bedford Hills and sit in on discussion groups of women who had been battered and ultimately been driven to kill their batterers to finally save their own lives. We've gotten better than it was years ago. When I first went into practice, there was no such thing as battered women syndrome. There was nothing that excused someone from killing their batterer unless they were in danger of being killed at that moment. It's really important that we sensitize to those issues and we don't go back to what used to be the 3-stitch rule, where men were walked around the block after beating their wives or kids. So, you know, I haven't had those cases in civil court. I don't know if they'll be part of what I would do in Supreme Court, but certainly it's really important that we protect people who are going through those issues, because domestic violence is actually the one crime that crosses all socioeconomic and color lines.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another question from Cynthia Felix. How would you describe your judicial philosophy? Are there any legal thinkers or judges who have significantly influenced your views?
So I wanted to be a judge from the time I was 13, and don't laugh at me. I mean, it happened when I read the Supreme Court cases and when I studied them, and I wanted to be Thurgood Marshall. I really did. So I know that isn't where I am and where I'll be, but I always think judges can change the world. And I think we do on a small basis every day, no matter what case we hear, because the rulings we make are so important and impactful in people's lives. But basically, if I have a judicial philosophy, it's one I actually took from the judge I worked for 9 years. And it was treat everyone with dignity and respect. Listen, remember where you come from. Don't forget who you are. And remember you work for the people. So that's what I always try to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Matthew Fairley. You were publicly admonished by the Commission on Judicial Conduct for asserting your office in a traffic dispute. Why should we ignore this in making our selection of you?
I'm actually very glad you asked that question. Thank you for allowing me to speak to it. I was very stupid and I acted badly. And there was a woman double parked in front of a school and blocking a school bus. And I, being Miss Problem Solver, walked into the school, handed my business card to the security guard because I didn't have a child with me. Big mistake. I now learned that you don't use your business card when you're in my job. My intention wasn't to assert my position. That said, I was wrong and stupid. After a half hour of waiting there from 8 o'clock to 8:30 in the morning on Pacific Street between 3rd and 4th Avenues, when the woman came out, I lost my patience and I called her name. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't raise my hand. But because I had allowed my position to be conflated with what I said, it was really stupid. And I've regretted it for the last 2.5 years. I apologized to her. I wrote her a letter and apologized. I actually accepted the admonishment. I didn't fight it because I was so regretful of what I did. And I know how horrible it was. And I broke my own rule. I treated someone badly. And I never do that. You know, I don't want to say anything to excuse what I did. The only thing I will say is my dad was dying at the time, and I probably wasn't 100%. And I took steps to make sure that it would never happen again. And in the 40 years I've been a lawyer, nothing like that has ever happened before or since. So what I would say is, I would hope that it not be what defines me for the rest of my career. I understand that it's in your thoughts, and it's in my thoughts every day. And all I can do is apologize for it, which is why I accepted the admonishment without fighting it. And believe me, I know what a mistake it was, you know, so I hope you would understand that. In a way, I've learned from it, because aside from learning, never give your business card. I've also become much more sensitive to people's mistakes. We all make them. And
You can go ahead
I
and
don't
finish your
forget
thought,
that.
yes.
No, and I don't forget that people make mistakes, and I try to always be understanding, and I hope it made me a better judge. You know,
Thank
and
you
I
so
do hope
much.
you can forgive that. Thank you.
Thank you. And right on time, Judge Epstein, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on to the Honorable Chris Robles.
Good evening. Can you all hear me? Trying to
Yep,
get the
can
video
hear you
up.
and see you.
Can you see me now? Trying to get my video.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me, I got my 2 minutes here. So just thank you all for this opportunity to be here and speak to you. My name's Christopher Robles. I'm currently an acting Supreme Court judge sitting in Supreme Court criminal term in Brooklyn. I was appointed in 2017 by Mayor de Blasio. Sorry, I'm having a little difficulty here with some of the mics, but I was in criminal court for about 5 years. Then I moved over to 320 J Street about 2 years ago. I was serving in a quasi Supreme Court role. I was sitting in the unindicted felony part. My office was here in this building, and then I was fully promoted to acting Supreme Court. I've done every aspect of criminal court, arraignments, trials, the alternative to incarceration parts, which is a big deal for me. Prior to becoming a judge, I was a community lawyer. I had an office on 54th Street in Sunset Park, and I served Red Hook and Sunset Park communities, as well as communities throughout Brooklyn. I did all kinds of law. I did civil, criminal, appellate practice, some family law. So I did a lot of different areas of law. Also been active in my community, Sunset Park, proud Sunset Park Lions Club member. I am also in the Sunset Park Health Council, which I'm a board member. We oversee a lot of the facilities in Sunset and Red Hook. In connection with that, I was a Sunset Park bid member. Before that, I was also a board member of the Puerto Rican Bar Association for 6 years. I was term limited out, so I had to, leave that position. Maybe one day I'll go back. But community service is very important to me. Being involved in the community, understanding where people come from is important, and that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. We're going to go right into a question. What is or would be your approach to making sure pro se litigants receive equal access to justice?
So making sure everyone has access to justice is important to me. One of the things that's important is making sure counsel's available, especially in the criminal arena. If you're unable to afford an attorney, the court, we appoint attorneys for you. Sometimes the attorney that you're appointed there's a conflict, and I'm willing to give people a different attorney sometimes when there's a conflict. The attorney might be asking to be relieved. Also important is to make sure that I like to speak to people in a regular way. I don't need to impress you with my vocabulary, or we're not in an academic forum. People are here because they're in crisis, and I want to make sure they understand what's being said. Certainly I try to read the room. If I say something and it looks like the accused didn't understand, I'll try to follow up. So those are some of the things that I do to try to make sure everybody who appears before me understands and is represented and is being heard. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. Thank you. It does. Can you describe an area where you feel judges would need more training?
Wow. So a lot of the topics on bail reform you've been hearing about, and actually there's a mandate now that we do receive specific training, I think is certainly important for that area of law, criminal law, bail reform, discovery, to be up to speed, current with all the new appellate laws, all the new legislation, because there have been a lot of amendments to the law over the last few years. So I think that's an important area to make sure that judges are trained on, because we're talking about people's liberties, and that's important to appreciate what the law is and the legislature's intent behind the law. So I would say that's real important to make sure judges are up to speed on. There's others too, but I hope that answers that.
Thank you. We have a question from Lydia Green.
Sure.
Hi, Judge Robles.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
So I wanted to ask, so when you're seeing litigants in court, what is it that you draw from in your own personal background to help you connect with litigants as human beings and seeing them as people rather than as just like defendant and yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a very important question and skill set to have in life experience. So I certainly draw on my life experience. I grew up in a household with a single mom with 3 children. So we didn't have a lot. So I certainly can relate to people that are coming into the criminal justice system and are housing insecure and financially insecure. So that's certainly something I could relate to. Also, my experience in being a community lawyer. I got to work with and represent people of all spectrums of income. I've represented homeless people, and I've represented multimillionaires. So I've had an opportunity to do that. I've also, in the personal injury field, I've represented people that were severely injured through the negligence of other people. They also deserve to be heard. I've done the criminal work. I've done the family court. So I have a pretty broad experience. Growing up in Sunset Park was rough. There are a lot of people on hard times. Certainly, I have a lot of experience dealing with people from immigrant communities. Growing up at Sunset, my wife's an immigrant. So I think I have a good background in that arena that you're talking about.
Thank you. So can you talk a little bit about what you consider your greatest professional accomplishment?
Wow. So certainly being a lawyer and being a judge are great accomplishments. I had to work very hard to get here. I don't come from means, so that's certainly an impediment to becoming a judge many times. I also didn't have a lot of the political connections, which is also relevant to becoming a judge because it is a political job. So having accomplished that, from my background, to me, that's a big deal. As a judge, rewarding is when I get to work with the alternative to incarceration parts and programs, because in those areas you get to have really meaningful work and meaningful helping of someone who has not just gotten a free pass, but has worked hard to earn some leniency, some fairness, some justice. So yeah, and also to have dealt with some of the mental health parts as well. Those are some of the accomplishments I'm very proud of.
Thank you. And with just under 2 minutes left, one question. The Office of Court Administration has considerable influence in both legal interpretation and administration.
Mhm.
What can members of the bench do to make court administration more transparent?
So if I could just explain a couple of things, I think I understand the question. OCA is an administrative arm of the courts. So I'm not sure what the context of they have significant ability to determine legal issues. They certainly issue memos on hot areas of law, new areas of law, but I've never been in a situation, and I would never be in a situation where, you know, somebody from OCA is telling me how to decide a case. I would actually not follow that. If I had received some kind of communication from an Office of Court Administrator, even a judge, even a high-ranking judge, that told me that I need to decide a specific case a specific way, I would not follow that.
Thank you. And I don't think we have enough time for another question. So I'll just say thank you so much, Judge Robles, for joining us this evening, and very much appreciate your time.
I appreciate that. And if I could just quickly, while I wouldn't follow it, I would follow the law and make the decision based on that, not based on what OCA wants me to do in a particular case. And I think, and I think that's true for most judges, but I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Judge.
Have a good evening.
Next up, we have the Honorable Judge Jeffrey Sunshine.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can hear you great.
And can you see me?
Yep, can see you great.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I am Justice Jeffrey Sunshine. I'm an elected Supreme Court judge running for re-election this year. I've had the pleasure of sitting since 2010 in the Supreme Court as an elected judge. Before that, I was an acting Supreme Court judge. I come to the bench with a history of being a lawyer in private practice, past president of the Brooklyn Bar Association, chair of the Bar Association's Speakers Bureau and Family Law section for many years. I now am since 2008, I've been the supervising matrimonial judge in Kings County Supreme Court. And since 2018, I've been the statewide coordinating judge for matrimonial matters. I also chair the court system's matrimonial practice advisory and rules committee. I still, notwithstanding all of my duties and obligations, both in Kings County and statewide, I still sit on the bench in Kings County. I have a calendar. I try cases, I write opinions. I've actually published over 160 opinions in the matrimonial field, and I continue to lecture extensively before bar associations, law schools, and at judicial training seminars. I'm the liaison between the matrimonial field and the Judicial Institute, so I do a lot of planning, coordinating, moderating, and speaking, as well as travel throughout the state and throughout the city, dealing with matrimonial issues, legislative issues, rules, and troubleshoot cases where there may be conflicts of interest, and hear cases where there are situations of
Thank you so much. And we'll go straight into our Q&A. And the one question I'd like to ask, what qualities and experience would you look for in a law clerk, and what would you do to increase diversity in court staff, especially law clerks?
So in my own chambers, I have a diverse staff. My assistant law clerk comes from Guyana, was a night school student at St. John's and a paralegal. Actually, the last night school class at St. John's Law School. They eliminated that night school program. Certainly, I sit on hiring panels. Diversity is extremely important. I've worked very hard to increase diversity in the matrimonial profession. In fact, I spearheaded with others a matrimonial diversity summit sponsored by the Matrimonial Practice Committee in my statewide office, the New York City Bar Association, and the New York City Bar Association, New York State Bar Association, Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. And there was just another one that was modeled after what we did in New York City up in Buffalo, and I traveled up to Buffalo. There's an acute need for diverse members of the matrimonial bar. It is a bar that is not diverse, and I've called that out, and I've used my podium, so to speak, to do that. I think it's extremely important.
Thank you. How do you view the role of the judiciary in addressing issues of social justice, such as racial and gender equality?
I think judges have to be very careful to be in tune with themselves. They need to understand the issues before them. They need to understand their own biases. They need to identify their own biases. I think as judges, we must always be neutral arbiters, but we also must take into account that if people can navigate the process, then we're not providing access to justice. If people can't understand what we put together and what type of requirements are necessary to represent themselves, that's problematic. So I do think that as a court system, we have an obligation to be acutely aware, sensitive, and where there are issues, we need to call them out. I think that's really important.
What do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice?
I think the issue is access to justice. I think that in order to have access to justice, you need to have enough interpreters. You need to have enough courtrooms. You need to have enough staff. You need to have fully staffed offices of the self-represented. You need to have the ability for people to seek guidance, not legal guidance, because we can't give legal advice as a court, but procedural guidance as to how to navigate the system. I think that we've made great strides in doing that, but there's always work to be done. You know, in some ways, that's also a real issue in rural communities around the state. It's important in Brooklyn, but and very important in Brooklyn. But where you have courts that, you know, span lots and lots of areas, and there aren't proper resources. We've done a fairly good job in New York City, but we could do better. And I think there's always room for improvement. And I think that, you know, coming out of the pandemic, we've been able to, quite frankly, meet that challenge in a much different way. And that is through virtual proceedings, through access to self-help centers, through mediation programs. There really is, especially in the civil side, a great benefit to mediating cases. It's a different way of thinking. I actually took training as a mediator myself through the court system because I wanted to learn the process and understand the process. So I think those are all impediments that we can overcome, and certainly the financial circumstances that the state now finds itself in benefits that. And certainly, I do think in times where there are financial difficulties, the court is not just another agency. We're an independent third branch of government. And our only commodity really is people. We don't have trucks. We don't really own the buildings. The city owns the buildings. The locality owns the buildings. It's people. When you cut staff, when you cut resources, it impinges upon access to justice.
Thank you. Can you describe an area where you feel judges would need more training?
Probably technology. If I'm, listen, I have one lane. My lane is matrimonial. And, we've developed, and I worked on a virtual evidence courtroom during the beginning of the pandemic, which is now in use in other disciplines as well. And I worked on that from this very desk in my very basement of my house with the director of e-filing and I did the legal end, they did the technical end with the Department of Technology, of course, and IT. And we put together a virtual platform that was used during the pandemic and is still used today. But I do think that, a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old in many cases has a far more level of confidence in technology than some judges do. And so I do think that that's certainly an area that has grown, but will continue to grow, as well as the use of AI. I think, I sit on the court system's AI commission, and as well as on the second department's AI commission, or committee, I think it's called. And certainly that's a developing area that I think that trained properly can be a benefit, especially in the area of finding out information for self-represented litigants. And that has to be translated to proper use of AI, because it is also a very dangerous tool.
Thank you. And we have just about 45 seconds. Felix, if you can ask your question quickly.
Yes. I hear, hi, Jeffrey. I hear you mention your hardline is matrimonial. And I want to hear your concern when we're talking about divorce in the families.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
I say I want to hear about you when we're talking about divorce in the family.
So when I'm dealing with families, I'm dealing with human beings, I'm dealing with lives, and I'm also dealing with people who may never ever again see a judge or have any exposure to a courtroom. As such, I must remember that whatever I say, they will remember forever. And especially when I'm dealing with children and having what we call in-camera interviews. I think that one of the reasons I very much enjoy and have spent my entire career in matrimonials is that no two cases are alike, no two families are alike. I come off the bench, I sit and talk to people. I sit and talk to people after I make a decision, even after a case resolves, because I want them to know that somebody was listening and somebody really cares.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Judge Sunshine. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a nice day, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And up next, we have the Honorable Maria Aragona.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Aragona. I currently serve as an acting Supreme Court judge in guardianship part hearing cases pursuant to Article 81 of the Mental Hygiene Law. Not for children, but for adults who are over the age of 18, who either by their choosing or determination of incapacity require the appointment of a guardian. My legal career was inspired by my life experiences. My father died tragically from a gunshot wound when I was 10 years old. And after my father's death, many lawsuits ensued in Kings County. And I witnessed firsthand how litigants were being treated, which sparked my interest in the law. As a daughter of a single mother, I worked hard to obtain full scholarships to high school and college. And in 3 years, I graduated summa cum laude from St. John's University, and then obtained both my law degree and my master's of law degree with a concentration in family law and child advocacy from Hofstra University. I went into private practice, mainly representing clients with matrimonial and family court disputes. I then left private practice to pursue a career as a law clerk in Supreme Court for almost a decade, where I handled numerous civil cases, including medical malpractice, personal injury cases, contract disputes. I was truly humbled to be elected a civil court judge in the 3rd Municipal District, in the area where my family has lived since they immigrated to America over a century ago. I've presided in criminal court, civil court, which is the people's court, and now in the Supreme Court guardianship part. Each day I use all of my legal experience to help the most vulnerable people, many of which who are also facing eviction, foreclosure, financial exploitation, while also experiencing many other personal life issues, whether it be personal issues or mental health issues, medical issues. And I really thank you all for giving me this opportunity tonight.
And right on time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving into Q&A, can you, I just lost my question. There we go. What areas of law did you practice as an attorney prior to taking the bench? And if you can also describe any pro bono work you may have done.
So I did mainly matrimonial family court and criminal defense. And I also did most of my cases were actually an integrated domestic violence part, which was where either a criminal or a family court or a criminal and matrimonial case was plaguing for a family. And so fortunately, a lot of my cases were pro bono because many of my clients could not afford to pay an attorney. And it was most of the time, specifically, there was very many hardships, people facing hard times, especially when they were splitting up. I have a specific child support case that I did for a woman pro bono specifically, and she has thanked me. She was an immigrant, and her son had many health issues, and she barely made ends meet, and she needed to collect on child support, and she was just in a bad way, and I just couldn't even charge her for what she was going through. It was something that was really something. And years later, she continues to reach out to me and says how I've helped her and her son so much. So that was something that was very, really much rewarding. But a lot of the families, especially being, in a place where they now have to have 2 homes, they have very limited circumstances. So most people I charge very little.
Thank you. Another question. As a civil court judge or in your time on the bench, how long do you take to issue a decision on a fully submitted motion?
Typically, I try to give my rulings orally from the bench or write up a short form in the courtroom. If it's something that's more extensive and requires extensive research, I try my best to get it out within 60 days of submission.
In what ways do you ensure the rights of low-income people, including domestic violence survivors, in your role as judge?
So specifically in the guardianship part where I preside, I appoint an attorney, regardless of whether a person can afford it or not. It will be either pursuant to 18B. There's always an appointed attorney for the alleged incapacitated person, who is the person who is usually the most vulnerable person in the case. So I like to make sure that there is always an appointed attorney, regardless of ability to pay.
How would you describe your judicial philosophy? Are there any legal thinkers or judges who have significantly influenced your views?
I think my judicial philosophy personally is that I always try to treat people the way that I would want my family or wished myself would have been treated in the court system. I'm not really a person that follows after others. I think that I've experienced firsthand certain things, and I just use my morals and want to make sure everybody's treated with respect and dignity. And most of the time, especially in guardianship cases, I come off the bench to sit and with the people. And so it's a more approachable and empathetic courtroom in a place where they can feel like they're being heard, respected, and that it's truly their courtroom and that they have access to justice.
Thank you. And another question from Matthew Fairley. If you could make one change to improve the court system, what would it be?
I think one change I would hope to have, like I said, most of my clients couldn't afford attorney. And I think one thing that would be very helpful in criminal court and in family court, they're usually appointed attorneys. And in civil cases, in civil court, and also in matrimonial and Supreme Court, there are no attorneys that are appointed for people who have limited means. And I think also for people with foreclosure, there are agencies that help them, but there is no actually appointed counsel through the state. So that would be one thing that would be very beneficial to all the litigants to have an equal access to justice.
Thank you. And with just about 2.5 minutes, what type of cases within the jurisdiction of the state Supreme Court are of most interest to you? I know you preside over guardianship, but are there any other jurisdictions that interest you?
I do love guardianship, and it intersects with a lot of the areas of law. But I also think that I used to work in the integrated domestic violence part is something that is very, very sensitive and also would help very many vulnerable people. And so I think that that is an area that I also had interest in as well. But I do love this part, and I hope to stay.
Thank you. And if we can squeeze in one other question, what do you perceive, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. How do you view the role of judiciary in addressing issues of social justice, such as racial and gender equality?
So I think that it's really important for judges to make sure that we are sensitive to any implicit bias, and really take seriously the training that they provide, and always taking whatever we can get access to, because you always have to be conscious. And I think that that's something that we need to have blind justice. And so we really need to improve and make sure that we constantly work on it, because even when you think you're good at it, you always have to maintain checking implicit bias and having that at the forefront.
Thank you. And we have about 45 seconds left, and unless anyone has a quick question to ask, I think we're going to move on to our next candidate. Thank you so much, Judge Aragona, for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Our next judicial candidate is the Honorable Sharon Hudson.
Can everyone hear me?
Can hear you, yes.
Okay, good evening. I can go ahead?
Yes, please do.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharon Hudson, and I am an acting Supreme Court Justice, currently presiding as the sole judge in the Red Hook Community Justice Center. Also, I serve as the presiding judge over the AP 18, which is the mental health part in criminal court. I have been a judge for 12 years, elected to civil court originally in 2011. I've been an acting Supreme Court judge for 7 years. I've held jury trials, bench trials, but basically alternatives in incarceration and problem solving is what I love to do and enjoy doing. I have served as a small claims arbitrator. I clerked for a civil and Supreme Court judge, and I worked as a pro se attorney assisting individuals who did not have attorneys, getting legal information and legal education. Also, I've visited schools, helped youth groups, volunteered with seniors. And actually, I had a Girl Scout troop visit me in April that came by in arraignments. I'm always asking people to bring their children so that they can experience court and how it is, especially in arraignments, where that's the first stop. Oh, I have more time?
Yep, you got 45 seconds.
Oh, okay. And I'm hoping that always I want to be fair and just and give people respect and dignity. Anyone that comes to Red Hook, the bench is not even elevated. So when I look at a person, it's eye to eye. And I believe that individuals, since I'm in the criminal court, I allow them a chance to speak. Also, I'm also in housing court. So I try to make sure that person who comes in at pro se feels comfortable and understands what is happening in the court.
Thank you. With 5 seconds to spare, I appreciate it. We have a question from Felix Ceballo.
Okay.
Hello, Sharon.
Hi. Good evening.
My question is, why you want to run for Supreme Court?
Well, I've been as an acting Supreme Court for 7 years. In order for me, if I decide later on to want to move up or be promoted, then I would have to be in the Supreme Court seat. Considering the experience that I have in the as a judge, I really would like to move forward and serve my individuals in Brooklyn in a different capacity, in a high capacity. Coming from the place where I started as a court officer and have been in the court system for 40 years, I am looking forward to being able.
We don't hear.
That's wrong. I'm sorry.
We don't hear you before.
Oh.
In the last you said.
Oh, I was saying, coming from a position where I was a court officer and I've been in the court system for 40 years, it would be good for me to continue serving the people of Brooklyn in a different capacity and had as an example to show that you can do anything and coming from one area and move into another area. So, I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge Hudson, can you talk a little bit about, you sit in a very unique court with the Red Hook Community Justice Center. Can you talk a little bit about how that is in some ways similar to other courts or how it's different to other courts?
The similarity is, yes, I hear cases, I preside over cases, and that's almost where it stops because in Red Hook, we're always looking to resolve cases or dispose of cases in a way where either the person comes out better than when they came in. Like, for example, we have counseling. We have classes that they can take, driver accountability programs, treatment programs, so many different things that they can do. And that's just the court side of it. Even on the other side, we still have various programs, GED programs. We have the youth program, Youth Impact. We have the Peacemakers program where even that's good for neighbors. And all of these programs, although not in the court, I make sure that, I keep to make sure that they are running correctly. We just did a financial workshop. I was there every class that I could be in, encouraging the individuals to continue with the financial class. So it's different in that sense that I'm more involved. Also, the fact that we're internationally known. So any given day, we could have visitors, judges. We have judges from El Salvador. We had judges from Texas. So they come in to see how the model is run and how everything is worked out. And I'm willing to help them with information and how they can get this particular court in their county or in their country. So it's different on all levels in that way. And I'm the only judge there. So all of that I do all day, meeting, not only presiding over cases, but meeting with the various staff members that are in the court, as well as individuals who come to visit. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much. What do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice?
Now I can say, being and having been in the system 40 years, it's much better than it was when I first started in the court system, where at one point when I worked in civil court as a court officer, they didn't even have an information area. Now they have, you come in, you get information. So I see the changes. They're slow, but they are moving towards being more inclusive, more transparent, and also providing more help for the individuals. They didn't have, now they have a website, which they didn't have before. So I can tell a person, you can go online, you can look at forms if you want to bring an action for a tenant, or if you're a tenant and you want to provide an answer, you can find out information about legal referrals, and everything is online. So it's easier for those who are not online. They can come into Red Hook Community Justice Center, and we have a housing resource center. We have a place where you can get information. So everything is much better. And I'm glad that I've seen the changes, and it's still moving forward and still opening up and still bringing in. And the chief judge that's in charge now, he visited Red Hook. I had requested that he come, and he visited and was able to see what we do. And I have a couple of requests that I want him, that I gave him a list of requests to also make Red Hook run much better. And not just that, the mental health part that I'm in AP 18, as we have those issues going on, we definitely need more providers. There's various different things that I'm pushing for so that we can have more help in those parts.
Thank you. We have about 3 minutes left. I want to turn to Robert Camacho for a question.
Okay.
Hi, how are you? I'm listening to you, and you said you was a court officer.
Yes.
That's amount of years. How is the outside in regards to protecting you and protecting the people compared to you making decisions in people's lives? Because when you're a court officer, you're there making sure it's safety. Now you're on the other side, and you're seeing, sometimes you may hear some of the judges when you as a court officer making decisions that you may not agree, or say that it wasn't good. How are you now that you're in that position to say, well, now I'm in the other side? So how does it feel? Because it's kind of odd for me to see someone that was a court officer working with the judges that were there and working with the people there and decisions that they make. Now you have to make decisions. So how do you balance, and how do you feel now that the shoe's in the other foot and you're like, wait a minute?
The time that when I was a court officer, I also went to law school at night, and then I became a law clerk. So I was working with a judge. So during my whole career, in each step, I got to speak with judges, learn from judges, listen to what they were doing, see what they did. And then as a court attorney, I got to work on the procedural and the legal part. As a small claims arbitrator, I actually was able to sit and hear cases for individuals who did not have attorneys. And then as a judge, I bring all of that with me when, everything with me when I sit on the bench. There are instances where we may have individuals who may approach or come in. Let me give an example. One gentleman came in, he was upset. He was like, oh, Red Hook, I don't know where this is. I had to come here, and he was complaining and making noise. And I said, but you're here. I'm glad you're here. And I said, look around. This is a cleaner court, a better court. Weren't you treated better when you walked in? I said, here you want to be here because we help and we assist and we also see what the issues are. So it's a better place for you to be. When he left, he thanked me. So in those kind of situations, I use that part of my training to even de-escalate any situations, just with myself and the individual. And I believe in speaking to the individual. Yes, they have attorneys, but most attorneys know me and they allow me to speak to their clients because they know basically that I'm not there to harm them. I'm here to hear, do justice, but also be fair and impartial. Thank you. And thank you for that question. That was a good question.
Thank you so much, Judge Hudson. We are out of time, but we so much appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for the invitation. God bless. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Same to you. Moving on to the Honorable Claudia Daniels de Peyster. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Let me log on. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for moderating, District Leader Pena. Thank you to all the district leaders and the community. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Claudia Daniels de Peyster. I sit as an acting Supreme Court judge in criminal term, where I've been an acting judge since 2022. I've been a judge almost 10 years. I sat in criminal court for 7 years, and then I was moved up in April of 2022 to be an acting Supreme Court judge. So April of 2025 will be 3 years that I've been sitting there. I'm already doing the work of Supreme Court. I do a lot of community service. And one way I do community service is to swear in students in student government in middle school and high school. I encourage them to work as a team. But I also invite students, elementary, high school students, to my courthouse. When I meet teachers, I invite them to bring their class. Because I said it's one thing to meet 1 or 2 students, but it's another for kids to come to the courthouse, see what the pens look like, speak to a court officer, a prosecutor, and a defense attorney, and also speak to me. They can see all the careers that they can have. I understand the challenges of community. My parents are both Guyanese, so I'm a first-generation Guyanese American. And I sort of bring all of my life experiences to being a judge. Like maybe different than a lot of judges, I went to law school to become a judge. And then when I graduated, I realized I had to be a practicing attorney. So I did all types of work to prepare me for this role as a judge.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll go straight into our Q&A. What type of cases within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court are of most interest to you?
Well, I sit in a gun part, so I sit in GP2, and I also sit in Part 2, which is all other felonies, robbery, rapes. The gun cases are of interest to me, and why? Because a lot of young Black men are carrying guns. A lot of them are in gangs. And I think that sitting in that part as a Black woman who sits in the community, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, I think I can impact them to make changes and do other things. So when I get a gun case, I don't automatically say remand, certainly I could do that, but if I get you in some programming, what are you interested in? For example, Brownsville is one of the poorest in terms of gross, how much money they make in the community in the city. So I make sure that kids that come from Brownsville, I try to send them to programming in Brownsville and do programming that's of interest. And I've seen students come in or defendants change from how they came in to now being role models in their community. And that's an area where I think I can make a difference.
Thank you. How do you view the role of the judiciary in addressing issues of social justice, such as racial and gender equality?
So I think it's important as a judge. My motto is practice being pleasant. And so it's a practice to be pleasant every day, but I greet everybody every day. And I don't call defendants defendants. I call them by their name. And the main reason I do that is because they're arrested, but they haven't been convicted. And so I humanize them by calling them by their name. And I find what happens is the prosecutors even refer to the defendant by name, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Davis, instead of defendant. Because when you say defendant, it dehumanizes the person, and it also takes away the humanity. So you could treat them any way. But when you know it's Mr. Johnson or Miss Davis, you treat them a little differently. And I even find the offers that I get are more humane in my part. So I make it a human place, not a criminal place.
Thank you. Can you describe an area where you think judges need more training?
I think technology is important. For example, there's no law that says we could do virtual appearances. We did it during the pandemic, but I still do virtual appearances because some people, every time they come to court, they don't necessarily get paid at their job. So I try to do virtual appearances. I get the approval from both the defendant and the attorney, and do virtual appearances until when they have to appear in court. If there's hearings, then they have to be in person. If they're taking a plea, they have to come to court. But I consider that for people. So I actually have virtual days where I have virtual calendars. And if someone's out of state, I don't just say, well, you did the crime in New York, you got to be in New York. I understand that you're charged with something when you came to New York. So I'll keep it virtual until they come to New York. So in terms of training, learning technology, knowing how to use virtual platforms to have, cases done virtually, and even using other technology. Like I don't write in the court files. I use the New York bench where I could write my notes, and it's in technology instead of writing in the court files. So technology, I think, is a big area where judges can train.
Have you ever had a ruling overturned by a higher court or appellate court? And if so, what was it, and how did you incorporate that experience into your overall judicial practice?
I think I need to knock on wood, but I haven't had any of my decisions overturned as of this time. And I've been on the bench almost 10 years. I haven't had any cases overturned.
Thank you. If you could make one change to improve the court system, what would it be?
That's a good question. A lot of people said access to justice. I sit in criminal court, so we do have 18B. And to hear that in Supreme Civil, they don't have 18B, which is state-appointed attorneys, I would say we need more of that. I use all the resources the court has. So when I was in lower court, we had GED programs. I told attorneys about it. Some attorneys were like, I've been here for 15 years. I didn't know we had GED programs. So I utilize all the resources we have. But having state-appointed attorneys are important for people that don't have the ability to pay. And I think that's a very important area. Access to justice is very important. And even technology, because I have some cases where people don't have computers at home, but they could use their cell phone and be on a virtual call, or go to the attorney's office and be on virtually. So that helps people that, like I said, don't get paid when they take off of work. I've had one person in my court who had just started a new job. So I allowed him to be virtual every appearance, and he ended up getting his case dismissed. But every day he was at work and went in the hallway and did his court case, and eventually his case got dismissed. And I was really glad that, you know, he was able to make work every time and still make his court appearances.
Thank you so much. We have about just a minute left. I'm going to see if I can ask one question as quickly as possible.
Okay.
What do you consider your greatest professional accomplishment?
Like I said, I actually went to law school to become a judge. And so to me, becoming a judge is one of my greatest accomplishments because I was a practicing attorney for 20 years. I worked in civil court, criminal. I did landlord, tenant, real estate. My first job coming out was representing tenants who had disrepairs in their apartments. I got their rent reduced until their landlord fixed the lights, fixed the electricity, fixed the water, fixed, you know, made electrical units workable, and their rent was reduced until those repairs were done. So to me, bringing all that experience of all the types of cases I did to now be a judge, I think is what makes it all worthwhile for me.
Thank you so much. We are just at time. We very much appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you so much. And I just thank everyone for taking out time in your busy schedule to be on this Zoom call. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next joining us, we have Judge Lisa Lewis.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so I'll start my 2 minutes. First, thank you everyone for inviting all of us here this evening to speak to the voters or potential voters in the upcoming election. My name is Lisa Lewis. I was raised in Brooklyn. I went to high school at the Bronx High School of Science. I went to Bucknell University for my undergraduate career, and I went to the University of Texas in Austin for law school, and then I got my master's at CUNY Graduate School. While I was in law school is when I started my legal advocacy. I was in the clinic for juvenile justice rights, which was part of the Legal Aid Society in Texas. Once I graduated from law school, I started my career at the Legal Aid Society, where I represented litigants who were accused of felony crimes. I did most of my career representing people who could not afford an attorney. So I also worked for DC 37 immediately before I was elected, and that is the union that represents, that's the organization that represents unions, New York City employees. And I represented people who were in Supreme Court doing matrimonial proceedings. Prior to being elected, I also clerked for a criminal court judge and a Supreme Court judge. As a clerk, my role was to ensure that the motions and trials were handled efficiently and that the cases moved procedurally so that people could get their cases heard fairly and as quickly as possible. As a sitting judge, I am in the civil court. That's the Court of Economic Justice. Most of the litigants in civil court are self-represented, and that's where I am now. I also do, in addition to like small claims, commercial litigation, things of that nature. Sorry, we get Supreme Court transfer cases. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First question, which kind of goes to part of your last statement, is what is your approach to making sure pro se litigants receive equal access to justice?
So when I'm sitting in the parts, what I do is I start with a script. I let people know that even if they don't have representation, the court is going to listen to whatever they have to say, and everyone's going to have an opportunity to present their cases. What I do is when the litigants do come up, I allow them to, well, first I ask them if they received the papers because sometimes they haven't. And if they haven't, or they say they got the papers, but they didn't understand it, I always refer them to the self-help center. Every civil court has a self-help center in the building, and I refer them to the center to help them understand what they're being brought into court for. I explain to them that as a judge, we cannot give them legal advice, but I always want to make sure that they understand what the procedure is. I do explain the procedure to them. If there is a motion, sometimes they want to say, they want to start arguing the case. And I say, no, take some time, speak to a counsel, go to these legal resources and let them assist you before you just start making arguments that may or may not be beneficial to you. So that's how I approach with my pro se litigants. I always try to give them the opportunity to speak. And actually, I've had attorneys, say, oh, you were very patient because, they don't understand. And sometimes they'll ask the same question over and over again. But, that's my role as a judge, to make sure they understand what is happening.
Thank you. How would you describe your judicial philosophy? Are there any legal thinkers or judges who have significantly influenced your views?
So I would say that, so I clerked for a judge in criminal court and in Supreme, and I come from a legal aid background. My judge was a former assistant district attorney before they became a judge. And our philosophy really was in sync. When she was on the bench, I always sat with her and we would, do the cases. And she always spoke to the litigants, especially in the criminal part. She always allowed the litigants to speak if they wanted to speak. She always listened to their concerns. She would ask them, did your attorney speak to you? As opposed to sometimes people come into court and the attorney will speak to the attorneys. And sometimes it's like the litigant isn't even there, but this is their life. And she would always say, do you understand what your attorney just said? Do you understand what your attorney is arguing? Have you spoken to your attorney before you came to court today? And those are the kinds of things that are really important to me, because everyone who comes into court, their cases are important to them. And yes, there are attorneys on one side, maybe attorneys on both sides, but at the end of the day, this is their life, and whatever happens will impact them, greatly for the rest of their lives, especially if you're talking about civil liberties and economics. So speaking to the litigants is of paramount importance to me.
Thank you. Can you, if there's one thing you could change about or improve the court system, what would it be?
If there was one thing, I would have more resources. I find that a lot of times litigants come to court and they don't understand what's going on. And this is something I found even when I was practicing as a legal aid attorney. I did appeals at one time, and the litigants would say, I'm sorry for the background noise. Litigants would say, my attorney didn't listen to me. I tried to explain what happened, even aside from saying it wasn't me, I didn't do it. Or sometimes they would say, yeah, I did that thing, but this is why. Let me tell you why, and let me explain it to you, so that they could try and present their case to the court. So a lot of times I think people don't have communication. So they come to court, they go to the clerk's office and say, okay, go over here, go over there. And they don't understand why they're doing things. And I think we need more staff, more empathetic staff who will speak to the litigants as people and explain what is happening to them. Sometimes people will come to court and say, oh, that place wasn't really helpful. They didn't really speak to me. And I think part of that is training, but part of that is also time constraints. The court is very understaffed. And sometimes that can, weigh on people and how they interact with the people who come into the court. So I think resources and training are very important.
And thank you. Felix Ceballos with a question.
Hello, Lisa.
Hi.
My question is, if you think Supreme Court need any change, if you think it's like that, what change do you think is going to be?
So I think Supreme Court has a heavier caseload. Supreme Court deals with more complex issues. And I think Supreme Court has a lot of backlog, which is why as a civil court judge, I have been doing some Supreme Court trials because of the backlog in Supreme Court. I think that there needs to be more efficiency with the way the court is run. And I don't know if that's a staffing issue or a judge issue, or maybe a combination of both. But when I was a clerk, I sat with my judge in a trial part at the criminal court level and the Supreme Court level. She was in trial parts both times. And my job was to make sure that every case was managed efficiently. Every case, when they came before the judge on their court appearance, something would happen, right? So we would have something happen that would move that case along, so it's just not stagnant. You're not just coming back for another appearance. And that's something that I do as well. When people come before me and they're asking for an adjournment, I always want to know why. And why haven't you done that before you got to court today? Why did you wait and have people come in if you knew you weren't going to be ready? So that's something that I think that needs to be done in both courts, civil and Supreme. We need to really get rid of the backlog. I think the court is working towards that, but we really need to do more.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we unfortunately do not have any more time for additional questions. It goes by very fast. I do want to thank you so much, Judge Lewis, for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. If anyone does have any questions, I'm available and always willing to reach out and answer them. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And next we have Judge Odessa Kennedy. Judge Kennedy, you're muted.
Hi, everybody.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I've been a judge for the past 8 years. I was just a quick my background. I was born in Iran. I came here when I was 9 years old, and when I went to law school, and I was very, very amazed by the civil rights that's available in this country, and I was very idealistic. And when I graduated from law school, I became a practicing attorney for 19 years. I did a lot of jury trials in areas including police brutality, false imprisonment cases, medical malpractice, labor law, nursing home violations. And when I did become a judge, I started doing a lot of jury trials. Also during the pandemic, I wrote, I don't know if you guys know about the 2019 Tenants Protection Act that substantially increased the tenants' rights. I created a seminar. I sent it to the OCA, Office of Court Administration. They liked it, and they broadcasted my seminar on the new statute to all the judges. They all got 1 credit for it. I also created another seminar on civil practice and sent it to OCA. They taped me, they liked it, and they also broadcasted that to all the other judges. I have 45 of my decisions published by the New York State Law Journal. I'm involved in civics, charity work, my community. I've done a lot. If you want to ask me questions about that, I'll be happy to tell you. I think my 2 minutes is going to be up very soon, so I don't know where to start. But one of them was during the pandemic, I provided 400 meals. I financed it, together with a not-for-profit, and we fed basically the public. I financed.
No worries. We're gonna go straight into Q&A, or hopefully you can continue. Can you what type of cases within the state Supreme Court are of most interest to you?
I like labor law cases a lot. It's a pretty complex statute. It gives a lot of protection to construction workers. It's very interesting. The injuries are pretty significant. There's a lot at stake. So those are some of my favorite. I like medical malpractice cases. They're very difficult cases to try, but they're really, really interesting. And pretty much, I mean, I like trial work. I was a trial attorney, so I'm interested in pretty much a lot of different cases. False imprisonment cases are very interesting. I feel very, strongly about those. Civil rights violations, discrimination cases.
Thank you. If you become aware of misconduct or malpractice of a fellow lawyer or judge, how would you handle it?
I mean, it depends on the misconduct, right? If it was something, for example, pertaining to race, I would not tolerate it. I would be adamant. I would talk to them. I would raise a flag, report. So it really depends on the misconduct and malpractice. It depends on the gravity of it. If it's something really serious, yeah, I would report it.
Can you describe your judicial philosophy, and are there any legal thinkers or judges who have significantly influenced your views?
My legal philosophy is be brave. Don't care who comes before you. Don't be scared. Whether you're basically like the litigants are politically connected. I ran against county, so I'm very protective of the people who made me a judge, and that's the public. So my philosophy is to treat everybody the same. Sometimes you actually have to treat some people favorably because they are at a disadvantage. By favorably, I mean like you have to give them more assistance. So my judicial philosophy is be very fair, be brave, and be extremely impartial. And the black robe means a lot. We have to be blind, and we have to basically be fair to everybody, regardless of who appears before us, whether it be an elected official, whether it be somebody who's really, important in a bar association. Don't care what the bar thinks. Don't care what anybody thinks. Just do the right thing.
Thank you. If you can make one change. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sotomayor is one of my favorite judges. I like her a lot.
Thank you. If you can make one change to improve the court system, what would it be?
If I could make one change to improve the court system, this is going to sound a little bit selfish, but I would have Middle Easterners be recognized as minority group, because there are statutes that basically watch over judges. Like there are ways of analyzing whether judges, set bail on a particular group more than the others, with respect to the minority. And unfortunately, the Middle Easterners are not part of that group, and Middle Easterners are subjected to Islamophobia. And I know this just pertains to me personally, but I would really want to see that. I would want them to be, right now, the Middle Easterners are recognized as the white majority. So we're not considered minority. I want them to be considered minority, and I want them to have the same, diversity initiative protection than everybody else. So that's one way of improving it. Another way of improving it is get more lawyers. The pro se individuals are at a huge disadvantage, to the extent we could afford it, or to the extent we could, make this a priority. Actually, we have the money, we could afford it. Hire more lawyers to represent people, especially in commercial tenancy, for example. That's you're dealing with people's livelihoods, and pro se people are not entitled to an attorney. In housing court cases, you are, if you basically qualify. But in commercial tenancy, where you're about to lose your business, for example, you're not entitled to counsel. So let's say like you're not doing really well, like you can't afford an attorney. And it's very, very difficult to go against an attorney who obviously, knows how to effectively represent a client. So for me, it would be to, get more attorneys to represent those who cannot afford it, especially when it comes to significant parts such as commercial tenancy where their livelihood is at stake.
Thank you. And we have time for just one more question. I'll turn to Akel.
Hi, Judge Kennedy. Thank you for being here. My question for you is, outside of the courts, in what other ways have you given back to the community, like in any sort of like volunteer work or community service? And if so, roughly for how long?
Okay, so during for a long time, I have partnered with not-for-profits such as the Pakistani Youth Organization to provide food. I have partnered with the Brooklyn Immigration Society to provide grocery and essentials to the immigrants. I have partnered with, other charitable organizations to provide food and water to the emergency workers during COVID. I have there was a project in Bay Ridge called Mask the Frontline. This is before like people could have access to masks. I helped them create masks. I contributed to them and I assisted them. I also gave a seminar to a Middle Eastern Youth Society about prevention of domestic violence. And I covered, the different signs, the different types of domestic violence, the signs of domestic violence, and, the very stages where you just have to make sure you get out of the relationship. And I also provided a lot of resources that the city and the state have for domestic violence victims. I talked about different types of orders of protections you could get, the effect that domestic violence has on children, what resources are available for children, to help them, deal with the trauma and other types of resources. So I did that. I went to a couple of schools on my days off, and I'm very happy that I'm a judge and I'm a minority. So I go to schools and I put my robe on because I want other youth, the kids to know that if I could do it, they could do it. So I would go there and I would answer their questions. I would talk about the judicial system. The teachers would ask questions. I would entertain that. I also organized 2 school tours to the courthouse, and I spoke about system actions, and I also did a mock trial for them. Among
Thank you.
other things that I guess I don't have time. I
Thank
mentored,
you so much.
yeah, people.
Yeah, we are at time, but thank you so much, Judge Kennedy, for joining us this evening.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you very much for your attention. Have a good night, everyone.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Judge O'Neill.
Good evening, District Leader Pena, and thank you to everyone for organizing tonight's informative forum. My name is Inga O'Neill, and I have been blessed with the opportunity to serve as a criminal court judge and as a civil court judge. For the 22 years of my legal career have been dedicated to public service. Prior to becoming a judge, I worked for 19 years in the New York State Supreme Court civil term as a court attorney in the pool, writing decisions for different judges, as well as a law clerk to 3 different Supreme Court justices. And it's that experience that I gained working as a court attorney and as a principal law clerk that's helped me with what I do every day in my job as a judge, because my role as a judge, and for anyone working in the court system, our role is a role of public service. We are entrusted with the responsibility of ensuring that whoever comes to court for whatever reason, whether or not they're represented, that they are treated with courtesy and respect, that they are heard, and that a fair and impartial decision is made. As a court attorney and law clerk, I worked in different departments in the Supreme Court from the moment the cases came in the discovery parts, working directly with a judge who had what's referred to as an individual assignment system part, handling cases right up to the time of trial, settling cases that were pending in the appellate division and cases against the New York City Transit Authority, as well as the City of New York. I also worked in the Office of the Self-Represented in the Supreme Court at the time, the Pro Se office, giving basic legal information to self-represented litigants. I also served as a volunteer small claims court arbitrator at night for over a decade prior to deciding to run for judge. I was successful in a countywide race with 2 opponents. I was assigned to criminal court where I sat mostly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we'll go directly into our Q&A. What type of cases within the state Supreme Court are of most interest to you?
For me, each case is important. I worked for 2 years with a judge that had a medical malpractice part, so that allowed me to learn about a niche area of the law. When I was writing decisions randomly for different judges, when I worked in the pool, I handled matters dealing with personal injury, breach of contract, Article 78 proceedings, labor law cases, meaning labor and employment law, as well as scaffold law. Foreclosure cases, because at one point before there was a specialized part, each judge had their own foreclosure inventory. So for me, everything is important, and wherever I'm assigned, I do my best. So I don't.
Thank you.
That's.
Yes. What is your approach to making sure pro se litigants receive equal access to justice?
So at the start, and the civil court is often referred to as the people's court, which you've heard some of the judges explain. We rotate the judges in the civil court. We don't get to choose what type of part we have. We rotate in the different parts. And wherever I am, if there's a self-represented litigant, at the beginning, I set the tone by explaining, I greet everyone. Well, good morning, good afternoon. I explain what the purpose of the proceeding is, and I explain the ground rules in terms of I'll hear from each side before a decision is made, and that I ask the same way I'm going to be extending respect to the parties, that they do the same to each other. And if there's any resources that are available, for example, in the consumer debt part, I advise of the Access Justice Brooklyn services. In the other parts, there's the self-help desk, and I advise parties of where they can go if they need assistance. And sometimes if someone really does need an attorney, I do give them the information for lawyer referral services. A lot of the times people are unable to afford attorneys, so I do direct them to the self-help desk. And even though I'm not allowed to give advice, I am allowed to say, well, these are your options. And then it's up to that person to decide which of the several options they will choose.
Thank you. We have a question from Felix Ceballos.
Hello, O'Neill.
Good evening.
When we're talking about Supreme Court, do you think Supreme Court need any change when we're talking about technology?
I think across the board in all of the courts, I guess because it's the government, it's a public service, we don't have the same technology or same technological advancements as the private sector. So yes, more can always be done. I was recently appointed by the Justice Walker Diallo to a New York City Civil Court citywide committee for technology. So to find out the needs of each court, because even though we're referred to as a unified court system, each court is different in terms of what resources it may have. And with respect to the Supreme Court, even though I've been working in the criminal and civil court for the past few years with respect to the Supreme Court, they also need improvements to become up to par in terms of technology in order to be able to assist the judges and the staff in being able to do their jobs and to being better able to serve the parties appearing before the court.
Thank you.
Thank you. What areas of law did you practice as an attorney prior to taking the bench? And if you could describe any pro bono work you have done.
So my entire legal career has been in public service. I've worked in the court system. I started off first as an intern. Yes, I know that that's not being employed, but I first started off as an intern after my first summer at law school. And then once I graduated from law school, I applied to work in the courts. I had to go a lengthy 6-month process of being hired. I was interviewed 3 months after after applying, and then I had to take a writing test before I was eventually hired. So my entire career has been about public service in the court system and working as a volunteer small claims court arbitrator at nights. And I did that for about, I want to say maybe like about 14 years before I became a judge. And it's those skills of conferencing cases, settling cases, doing research, becoming well-versed in the law that has helped me, and the transferable skills has helped me every day in my job now as a judge.
Thank you. If you can, we have about 2 minutes remaining. If you can make one change to improve the court system, what would it be?
Well, some of the things have already been mentioned, but it's definitely about access to justice and improvement in technology, and also providing information to litigants about available resources. And also increasing the resources for the self-help desk, because in order for the self-help desk to be able to efficiently and effectively provide assistance to self-represented litigants, they do need more resources available in terms of whether it's funding or more employees being hired to be able to work the self-help desk and give the much needed information to the people appearing in the court. In terms of technology, we have not many people know that sometimes if you live out of state, you've come in for the first appearance, sometimes if it's requested, it's within the discretion of the court to grant a request to appear virtually on consent of both sides. Sometimes we do it, whether it's an ADA request, it can be permitted as well. But I would say definitely making sure that people are aware of the available resources and improving the technological access to the courts, and also the devices to help people who may have disabilities. For instance, sometimes there are people who need hearing assistive devices, and they may not be enough to go. If one courtroom needs it, another courtroom may need it, and because there's not enough to go around. So we would need, I would say, more resources given to the courts in order to better serve the public. Because even though, yes, great strides have been made, but more can always be done.
Thank you so much. And we unfortunately are out of time, but I do want to appreciate you so much, Judge O'Neill, for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Have a good night. Thank you.
Same to you. And last but certainly not least, Judge Nichols. Judge Seraphim Nichols, are you with us? last call for Judge Darafim Nichols. Can you hear us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Good evening. And
Thank you.
can you see me also?
We cannot see you, no.
All right, just give me a moment.
There we go. Now
There
we
you
can
go.
see you.
Thank you. All right, should I get started?
Yes, please, with your 2-minute intro.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone, and I thank the committee for putting this together. I'm Darafim Bernadette Nichols. I graduated from Brooklyn College and the University of Miami School of Law. Now, during law school, I interned with Catholic Charities and the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The work at those agencies were very fulfilling. I had the opportunity to help those who were less fortunate for myself. It was then I decided I wanted to go into public interest work. I was also encouraged by my parents at a very young age to advocate for what is right from wrong, and I've concentrated my career in making sure that the rights of others are protected and that justice is dispensed in a fair and impartial manner. Currently, I sit as an acting Supreme Court judge at the Supreme Court, where I preside over foreclosure matters and tax liens. My calendars are very, very hectic. It's an issue that affects the community right now. Many homeowners are losing their homes to foreclosure, and therefore I work very hard to make sure that justice is done on a daily basis. I have a little technical issue. I'm sorry. I also had the honor of serving in the civil and the criminal court for 4 years, a total of 4 years. Prior to becoming a judge, I served for 7 years as a court attorney referee in the Supreme Court, presiding over residential foreclosure matters. In that job, I was able to save thousands of homes from going into foreclosures in Brooklyn. I also preside over bench trials and issue reports to judges who referred cases to me. In addition, I served for 10 years as a principal law clerk and court attorney to an administrative judge. I assisted her in all phases of her administrative work. I also drafted decisions and saw court conference and settled cases. Prior to that, I spent a number of years in private practice, basically handling civil rights and immigration and housing and other matters.
Thank you. We're going to go directly into our Q&A. How do you view the role of the judiciary in addressing issues of social justice, such as racial and gender equality?
Well, more can always be done in those areas. However, I must say that with the new chief judge that we have, who is very hands-on, I've seen much improvements. And as I said, I know much more have to be done. There are a number of committees in place right now. There is a gender committee, and they're doing a very, very, very excellent work in terms of making sure that everyone are treated fairly. And not only that, but making sure that when they do come to court, they are being heard and they're not discriminated against. So that is really a big issue in the court system that is being addressed right now.
What is your approach to making sure pro se litigants receive equal access to justice?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the part that I cover right now, the foreclosure part, this is a really, really big, important issue because we have homeowners who are coming in, they're pro se litigants and basically without representation. So what I do, actually in my part, I have a list of agencies that can assist the homeowners who are pro se litigants. So at the beginning of my calendar, I make sure that my clerk explained that to them, that there are attorneys from legal agencies that are able to assist them. And I make sure that if they request an adjournment, if they would, ask for an adjournment to retain counsel, this is something I readily will make available to them. Moreover, I make sure that as a pro se litigant, they're not taken advantage of. And I'm not saying that attorneys take advantage of pro se litigants, but I make sure that they have a fair opportunity to be heard, to plead their cases or to defend the cases. And just make sure that, as I said, they get a fair opportunity to be heard. And it is really, really important that in my part that they appear with counsel. So I take every caution that I can to make sure that they have representation. because I believe equal justice is very, very important, especially as I said, I'm dealing with homeowners who are facing foreclosures, not only homeowners, but businesses, and the tax lien is a very big issue right now. I see cases where homeowners are losing their homes because failure to, pay a tax lien of minimum amount. So that is an issue I take very seriously in terms of making sure that they receive access to justice.
How would you describe your judicial philosophy? And are there any legal thinkers or judges who have significantly influenced your views?
Sure. My philosophy is always to be fair and impartial, to treat everyone the way I would like to be treated. I give everyone a fair opportunity to be heard. I'm a good listener, and I make sure that when you come before me, you may not win your case, but at the end of the day, you'll know that you had an opportunity. The judge heard you, and the judge rendered. You may not think my decision is fair, but I'll make sure it's a fair decision. Well, I admire many, many judges who came before me. The judge that I worked with, she took me in when I was basically just out of law school, and I studied with her. And a couple of years after law school, but I studied with her when she got elected. And she took me under her wings from the time she started in civil court up to Supreme Court until she went up to the appellate division. And then I became an attorney referee. She was very fair. She taught me to always respect others, do not judge someone by the way they look, but make sure everyone have a fair opportunity to be heard. And I've seen, especially in the criminal court system, how she basically made her rulings on the bench, and she gave everyone an opportunity. She never judged someone by the way they look, but she always believed, and she instilled in me that you're innocent until proven guilty. So I admire her a lot. Cassandra Jackson, I really admire her. I know that she's new on the bench, but I think she's a great example for especially women of color, people of color, I should say. She's a great example. I believe she's very knowledgeable on the law. I think she's going to do well in her position. And and not only that, I heard she's been a great mentor. She has always been a great mentor. And I think that's very important that we mentor others. And just her whole philosophy, I think is great. And I really admire her. Many judges I admire.
Thank you. And I believe we have time for one more question from Felix Ceballos.
Hello, Judge Nico.
Hi.
What changes do you think the Supreme Court need?
What changes? Well, I can tell you a couple of things that I need, I would like to see happen. And I'll start off with the criminal court. When I sat in criminal court, the surcharge that people are charged with. And I actually spoke to the district attorney's office about it, in the sense that they're charged, with a surcharge. Basically they adjourn the matter to pay a surcharge. And many times, yes, there are times when attorneys would ask to have the surcharge waived. Other times they do not. And when I sat there, I saw people got arrested on a warrant for failing to pay, being brought into the court for failure to pay a surcharge. And I think that's, well, I shouldn't say it's wrong, but I think that changes can be made in that sense, because you do have to take into account one's, ability to pay. And as much as I said, sometimes the attorneys may ask for a waiver, it doesn't always happen. And it's really unfortunate to have someone be brought in on a warrant for failure to pay a surcharge. To me, if they were able to pay, they were going to pay it in the first place. I think that is something that needs to be taken care of. I also think when I sat in the civil court, so I said currently I sit in the Supreme Court as an acting. When I sat in the civil court in the commercial part, the attorneys came in, not the attorneys, but the pro se litigants came in. Many of the cases that were before me were defendants who were parties who were in default, being able to make payments. And so their businesses, they were at risk of losing their businesses. And they came in as pro se litigants. have no idea what they're doing. And they are basically, defending cases against seasoned attorneys. And most of the attorneys who appear like before me in the part that I handle, as well as in the civil court, in the commercial parts, are well-seasoned attorneys. And to me, it is such a disadvantage to have parties come in who are not able to afford an attorney. Many of them end up not prevailing. And I think a lot has to do with the fact that they were not adequately represented. So maybe they can, and I inquired into that also, as to whether or not maybe we can have agencies come in, attorneys from agencies to put in a representation on their behalf. So those changes I would like to see. Also, I would like to see more interpreters available so that cases do not have to get adjourned because an interpreter of a different language is not available. We should have interpreters from all different languages available on any given day. Some of the changes I would like to see.
Thank you.
So that's unfortunately our time, but thank you so much, Judge Nichols, for joining us this evening.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you everyone in the committee for putting this program together.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for sticking out the 2.5 hours this evening. I appreciate it. After the Zoom or tomorrow, folks will be receiving a short survey. If you can fill it out, that'd be mostly appreciated. And thank you again to everyone for joining this evening, and thank you to our judicial candidates for speaking tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
everyone.